Hey, thanks so much for listening to the Ridge Community Church podcast. My name is John. I'm one of the pastors on staff at the Ridge, and our vision is to bring the hope of Jesus into every home. So as a piece of that, our goal each week is to bring you something that's hopeful and helpful. So subscribe to this podcast to make sure you don't miss any hopeful and helpful conversations. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to this episode of the Ridge Podcast. If you find today's episode hopeful and helpful, then please follow or subscribe, and then rate and review so that more people can find the conversation. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to give us a follow and turn on your notifications. Now, last weekend, Oak Creek Franklin Campus Pastor Forrest Anderson shared a message on why those who don't follow Jesus are so important to Jesus, and what is our role in that whole thing. So he sat down and chatted with me about why this is such an important topic to him, where he has seen investing in others done well, and more. This is my conversation with Forrest. Hey, Forrest, how's it going?
It's going well, man. How are you doing, John?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming on the podcast. And I saved this question until you first started, but man, what happened with the arm?
It's called, I was hanging out in our community. We're doing like these activity groups this summer. And one of them that I joined because my wife and I really love playing volleyball is our volleyball activity group. And so it was our second week. I went up for this great shot where I went back and just hit it from out of bounds all the way onto the other side of the net. And luckily I fell with my arm behind my back and landed right on it with my whole body.
Ooh.
And did what they're calling the terrible trifecta. I dislocated my elbow, broke the end of the ulna called the coronoid I might have butchered that, but broke the end of the ulna in my elbow, and then also busted up basically the ACL of your elbow too. So the ligament that's on the bottom of your elbow messed that up. And so I get to have 2 surgeries this week on it.
Ooh. What's the recovery for that?
Put it this way, I will not be swinging a golf club for about 12 months.
Oh, right just in time for summer.
Just in time for summer. No golf for Forrest. No volleyball for Forrest. Wow. Man, no running. No, like all the stuff I love to do in the summer, I'm going to have to figure out how to do something different. I don't know. Not to mention it's my right hand. And so I got to learn how to
become lefty.
My right hand. I know. Because they're
there's people that golf one-handed.
Yeah, I've never seen somebody do that, but I've heard that.
Pickleball. No, that's pretty quick moving.
Yeah, pickleball.
Like a bad idea.
Try to play pickleball. I don't know. Oh, we could try that. Just left-handed.
Yeah, there you go.
Backhands the whole time. I don't know.
Yeah. Man. Well, I'm sorry that happened. It sounds like you got the point though, which is really what matters at the end of the day.
I did get the point, except for my wife stopped it when she saw me and heard the snap and saw me in pain on the ground. And so I didn't actually get the point, even though we should have gotten the point, because my wife stopped the match.
Yeah, I can tell that your priorities are in the right spot.
I was sacrificing myself for the point, and we didn't even get the point.
Oh, man. Oh, hey, this last weekend, you got to share as part of our Relationships on Purpose series, which has been really cool to go through, especially as someone just like getting a chance to absorb and listen and hear all the stories that people are sharing and just the different ways that we put kind of plans into our relationships and stop kind of falling into accidentally having our relationships in our lives and putting a little bit more meaning and planning behind them. And you took us through, I think, probably one of the most it's one of the most unique, I think, relationships, because I think of how this relationship just like changes all the time, and what it looks like for one person might be a little bit different for another person. But we call that type of relationship a year one relationship. Would you maybe just give us a super quick flyover on what in the world do we mean when we say year one, and is that some sort of weird thing, and how do we make it not weird and all that stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I think the idea of year one is a pretty simple idea. It's just idea of just one person in your life that's close to you, that's near you, that you live in proximity with, to that doesn't have a relationship with God, right? So somebody who's far from God, that doesn't have a relationship with God, or we would say that's not a Christian, or doesn't go to church, or is lost. It's kind of like a lot of the different terms you can use for that, but it's really somebody who's close to you that doesn't have a relationship with God, that you're intentionally praying for or investing in, or hoping to one day be able to just share with them the hope that Jesus has in your life, and be able to help them just understand what that means, so that hopefully one day they get to spend the rest of eternity with you.
One of the cool things I've heard described, and you even said this last weekend, is you get to do for somebody else what somebody else did for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
What was the first time like you made maybe that connection, or you like realized it in that terms, or whatever that looks like?
Yeah, I think actually one of the first times I really understood what that meant was the first time that Mark and I, our lead pastor here, had a conversation about me going into ministry. And when he had the conversation, he's like, "Hey, we got this idea of this multi-site church. I want to, we need a pastor to lead this other church." And he says, "Yeah, I think you'd be great at doing that for us." And I'm like, "Well, I'm like not the holiest guy in the world, man. There's so many holier people here. Like why would you want me to do this?" And he's like, "Well, I think you could reach people like you." And it really, that idea stuck with me, about this idea of, okay, ministry isn't, and what we do as a follower of Jesus, our calling, isn't just to grow our faith and help us. It's how do we do this for other people? How do we help others and just help them experience the hope of Jesus in their life? And so I think it was right then and there, it was like, okay, somebody did this for me. Now I get to help others do this for people that did it for them. I mean, it's just the trickle down kind of effect of now what I get to do in ministry. But that's really where that idea hit home, probably for the first time.
I've heard 1,000 different speakers say some poetic, clever version of, the more time that you follow Jesus, it almost makes it so that it's like you're more focused on like your own stuff or your own faith, or things like that is kind of the default setting that we all kind of come back to. Like I said, people have said it way better than I've said it right there. I'm curious, like, because it seems like that has been something that you've actively fought against, that own pull in your life. How do you fight against that?
Yeah, I think the one thing is you just got to remember that. I mean, first and foremost, you just got to be intentional about that, right? I think the same thing with me. I mean, Tracy and I, we have conversations about this all the time, because when we feel the pressure to continue to, do church things and hang out with church people, all of a sudden we'll just feel this this pressure that we have to do that, right? Especially working in ministry, like we have to do that. But then all of a sudden we'll realize, like, hey, we haven't hung out with our neighbors in like a month. Like we haven't hung out with, some of the kids' parents that my kids are in sports with in a month, or something like that. And so we have to actually have to be intentional with reminding ourselves, like, this is what our calling is. And these are things, even though it becomes natural for us to hang out with people, the natural pull of us to continue to hang out with people who aren't Christian is hard. Like, and it's something you have to intentionally make sure that you're doing. And it's a huge part of our life and a huge part of the conversations we have.
Yeah, I'm sure part of that is, it's the internal dialogue of like, yeah, but it's more comfortable. It's more comfortable not to have to make a new friend or to have conversations that are, and I know lots of people who just cannot stand small talk. They hear the idea of small talk and they start running the other way. Is there an encouragement that you would have for people in that kind of vein?
Yeah, I think, man, I think it also, that's a great question. That's a great question. And I think the encouragement I have with everybody would be just figure out what you like to do. Okay. So if small talk isn't the thing that you like to do, right? Carrying on a conversation about, I don't know, what the most recent barbecue trend is or something like that. You know what I mean? Like if that's not those things, okay. So what are the things that you do? Because everybody, man, when you find people that are living in their sweet spot, having conversations about whatever that sweet spot in their life is. It could be, engineering. It could be, Magic the Gathering. It could be, these obscure things that not a lot of people talk about, but you find that sweet spot, right? You're like, okay, how do I figure out how to connect with my one or people around that way? And then you lean into that, right? Because we all have similarities, something that we're sharing in common. And you just got to figure out, okay, what is that thing in common? So it doesn't feel like a chore. So then we can just have a natural conversation where it doesn't feel like I'm forcing anything. Like those are the things that you got to figure out how you can figure that out. And that's why that listening aspect that we talk about when it comes to our one and learning more about them and just listening to them is huge. Don't feel like you have to talk. Listen.
I think there's a lot of freedom that comes from that concept, right? I mean, it even like maybe you have felt like you're not allowed to have hobbies before, or you can only have certain types of hobbies because that's the ones you're supposed to have, or whatever that looks like for you. And I think it's almost like a cool permission to be like, if you really like these things, it's okay to be into them and just give them a meaning behind it. Give a purpose behind, if you do like 13 fantasy football drafts every year, invite some buddies that don't go to church and to be a part of those leagues and do the cool drafts. And, it's an opportunity to I think leverage the things that you're excited and you're passionate about and include people in them in your natural area. It's I think that's really wise.
We're all doing life on our own. That's the easy thing to do, is right? Do life on their own. I got the things that I love to do by myself. I got the things that I just love to do in life in general. How do you just invite somebody to be a part of that? That's all you're doing with your life, right? You're just inviting somebody to be a part of what you're already doing. You don't have to change all these different crazy things and think you don't like the game of golf. You got to someone become a golfer. No, that's okay. What are things that I'm already doing? And how do I just invite somebody to do that with me and come alongside me as I'm doing that? And learn new things with them too.
Yeah, that's really smart. That's really wise. You mentioned the listening aspect too for that. Is that something that you begin to incorporate in with the hobby? Is that the questions you ask? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think it's the most important aspect when you begin investing in somebody is the listening part. And I think it's something you just incorporate in your everyday conversation, whatever that everyday conversation you're having with them. What you want to do is you want to spend more time listening to them, having them speak to you and asking good questions that aren't just yes or no questions, asking those open-ended questions that really get to know who they are. And then actually listen to what they're saying. Actually listen. Not, don't do like what you do with your wife when you ask a question and you're just like, I just said that to say that, right? And I'm ignoring actually what they're saying. I'm just trying to figure out how to speak instead of listening. No, but actually listening with so you can figure out what is this person like, man? What are the things that they have as hobbies? Where is that? One of the things that I'm always doing is I'm trying to figure out who that connection is, period. I walk into a room. When I meet new people, the first things that I want to do is I want to figure out what do we have in common? So then I can start actually having small talk because I like small talk, right? But I want to figure out what are those things that are in common that we start talking about? Do we like the same sports? Do we like the same sports teams? Do we like the same type of food? Do we like, where did we grow up? What is the neighborhoods we grew up in? What are the places we've traveled? All those things where we can find some sort of common ground to start having conversations. Now, my problem is sometimes I start down some road on some sort of topic and I get myself way too deep in some topic that I have no idea about because I said one word to try to connect with them on. And all of a sudden I found myself in some, fishing conversation about deep sea fishing when I said, oh man, I like to fish. And I actually really don't like to fish.
But I think that brings up a good, that brings up a good point. Your point isn't, I think this, not to harken back too much to the message this weekend, but you said the line, and I think we reiterated it a lot, is people are not projects. You're not looking for a project. You're not trying to behavior modify somebody. You're not trying to manipulate somebody. And so if you're in a situation where you're lying to them about your interest, that is not at all. That's not what the heart of God is looking for. It's about, hey, how do you genuinely connect with people because they do matter,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we love sharing with each other the things that we like to do. And when you find somebody that you can share that with that likes to do the same thing you do. It just becomes a natural, easy conversation. And then it's just a really cool way to just begin to connect and build that relationship. Where I said this week, move closer relationally with them. And so that's just a huge part of that.
Is there anybody that you hear about these ideas, or you've seen these things, like maybe younger, maybe right now, maybe there's somebody right now, maybe over in Oak Creek, Franklin, or really anywhere that you've seen model this type of behavior and this type of really caring and investing in people well?
Yeah, I think one of the guys who's just crushing it, knocking it out of the park right now is this guy, Art, who's on our setup teardown team in Oak Creek, Franklin. If you don't know this, Oak Creek, Franklin, we're a portable church, which means every Sunday we get to set up a church in our local grade school, and it is awesome. Takes a lot of work, but it's awesome and it's fun to do. But we've got this one guy who leads our team. His name is Art, and he came up to me just the other week, and he's like, "Hey, Forrest, man, there's something special going on in my life right now." I'm like, "Oh yeah, tell me a little bit about it." He's like, "It seems like everybody that I'm having conversations with and meeting is now coming to me and sharing with me some of the things that they're struggling with in life." And he looked at it as like this burden he was feeling. And I said, "Dude, that's not a burden you're carrying. What that is that's just the opportunity. See, what these people are doing, they're beginning to trust you. They're beginning to, you've invested them to a point where they're now ready to open up to you. So all of that time that you've spent just getting to know them, they're now willing to open up to you about some of the tougher stuff that's happening in their life." And that's a privilege and an honor and very sacred stuff when people start sharing that with you. And so, man, I said, just so proud of you. And just what I'm hearing, these are just people at work that he just started learning more about and having conversations just to get to know them. People that he's invited out for coffee, and you just getting to know them. And now these people have a place, a person that they can go and share some of the things that they're struggling with, marriages and just at work and stuff like that. And it's just, I don't know, man, I thought it was just so sacred to hear from them, just how these people are opening up to them.
That is, wow, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
I'll have to send text to Art, because Art's awesome.
He's awesome. And he just does it so, and he does it so naturally. And he just like kind of overwhelmed upon, like, dude, dude, enjoy it. And just love the fact that these people open up to you, because it's just a huge privilege.
Yeah, but I think that's a really true emotion, right? Where somebody is, they start investing in people's lives, and all of a sudden, like, they start sharing real stuff, and it can be overwhelming. Like, okay, what do you do with that? Like, what do you do if somebody starts sharing with you and starts, like, they do start opening up to real things that they're going through? And I think you mentioned the word trust is so key and so powerful. Is like, yeah, that's what it is. It's this moment of trust. And do you have any advice? Like I guess you gave Art some advice there, but somebody's in that position, right? And they start to notice that people are opening up to them, and people are genuinely caring and sharing and wanting to work through stuff. What are some helpful thoughts?
I think the best one is put yourself in their shoes. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day that came up to me and said that, somebody that they're very close to started sharing with them some of the struggles they're having in their marriage. And the first thing I asked them was, okay, what do you think they need from you in that moment? And I asked her, well, she shared with me what we needed. She said she just needs to tell somebody this. I said, okay, then that's all she's asking for that moment. So just take it to that level and just let it be. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to give them, words of wisdom in that moment. If all they need is somebody just to share something with and just to get it off their chest, be that person that they could come and share something to. So put yourself in the shoes. Like, what do they actually need from you in that moment? Because sometimes they're just trying to just begin to just investigate this relationship. Say, okay, how far can I trust this person? And so if they begin to open up with you, you don't want to, overshare and blow away trust or try to fix things when they're not ready to that. So sometimes it's just listening and just saying, I understand. I hear you. I get that what you're going through is tough, man. I really feel sorry for you, or I feel that for you. And so it's really just being present with them in that moment and hearing what they had to say. I think is the most important thing that we can do as people begin to share with us.
Yeah. That's really good advice. And I think that putting yourself in their shoes thing, I mean, I don't know if that's ever advice that's going to end like is that ever going to, I mean, maybe your thought process on it leads you astray, but for the most part, like that is a great place to start, because I think you said it so well for us. Like if somebody's in a place where they just need to be talked to, or like they'll let you know what they need from you. That way you're
Yeah.
not like putting yourself like, oh, I need to have this once in a lifetime, the perfect response answer to what they're saying. They're not even looking for that. And so
Nope.
don't put this incredible weight on your own shoulders that somebody isn't looking for you to carry.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
we try to pressure ourselves into thinking like, hey, I'm gonna in this moment right now change this person's life. You can change that person's life, but guess how you do
Mm.
that? By listening to them,
Yeah.
just being present with them,
Mhm.
just being in it with them. Like they might not be ready to hear advice or not be ready to a point where they really even are ready to change their situation. All they need to do is just start exploring what does it look like to tell somebody about this.
Yeah. Forrest, one of the things that I've heard a lot from people on this topic is kind of relating around like their own personality type. What I mean
Yeah.
by that is like, I'm sure you've heard this before. It's like, yeah, Forrest, that's great. You're an extrovert. You love people. You love making smash burgers around the grill and talking to 90 people at the same time. It's like,
Yep.
okay, I wonder, do you have like any thoughts, or have you seen like introverts doing this super well too?
Yeah. No, I think it's huge. I think figuring out how you best do this is huge. And again, I think it goes back to understanding yourself and saying, okay, how, I'm wired a specific way and I am wired as an extrovert. So that makes me want to go out and it just fills
Yeah.
my cup to be with people and hear people and have 100 conversations at one time. Whereas there's so many people that's scary, intimidating, and
Mm.
draining for them. And so I think it's okay, how do you then um, understand how you really connect with people? And sometimes it might be more on an intellectual level, right? Maybe it's something where you're sitting there and saying, okay, for you, it's like, hey, I need to have instead of 100,000 conversations, I just need to find that one person where we can have a conversation about, why Pluto is not a planet anymore or something like that. I don't know, or whatever. And maybe it's a planet again. I forget how
Um,
that's changed back and forth. But you figure out, okay, who are those people that are like that? And so that's more what you're looking for personally. So I think you always look at your experiences that you've had in life and say, okay, what are the things where I'm comfortable and I feel like that? Because we all have ways that we feel comfortable communicating with each other.
yeah.
That could be by text messages. Maybe you're just the best text messenger in the world. My brother-in-law, who's the dude that you would never think as the um, most articulate person in the world because he can't hold a conversation to save himself. He writes letters, like hand writes letters that are some of the
Oh,
most
wow.
powerful, amazing handwritten letters I've ever received in my life. That's just the way that he's gifted to
Yeah.
communicate with each other, and he can share his feelings that way. So I think you got to figure out, okay, what is the way that I do it, and then do it that way. Because
Mm.
you trying to be the most extroverted person when you're not is not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be natural. And it's going to be awkward for both you and them. Trust me. I've been on the other side of that. Yeah. I'm not the
Yeah.
most comfortable person for introverts to be around at times, right? I get it. But
No,
it's just
I
figuring
think
out.
that's interesting. I think that actually brings up a really good point though, because, there are times where it's like, cause I'm on the extroverted side as well. Right. And so it's like, yeah, maybe we're not very great at reaching certain people or
Oh,
connecting with certain people. Like I know there's people that I'm just like, I haven't been great at connecting with,
yep.
but I know other people are phenomenal at connecting with them. And so it can always, I think it is always easier to, it's always easier to look at somebody else and think, yeah, but they've got the stuff, they've got the giftings, they've got the whatever, whatever, whatever to do X, Y, Z. And it's like, well, God is calling you. He's not calling you without a purpose, and He's given you a unique gifting. Part of it is figuring out, like you said, how can I use that unique gifting to reach people?
Yeah. So I think we all got to just figure that out. Like what is our unique way that we communicate well with each other? And I think a way to look at it is too is what type of friend are we looking for?
Oh
Right.
yeah. Yeah.
So, I'm looking for friends that want to go out and have a good time and go do crazy things and play volleyball and break our arms, right? That's just my natural, like those are the
To
types of
mixed
people.
results.
Right, right. Love hanging out with.
Yeah.
But do you need somebody that loves playing video games? Do you need somebody that loves just going out in the middle of the woods and not saying a word to each other and shooting a deer together? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we all need friends. And so think about the way that you need a friend in your life. And those are the people then that you're going to be able to, have great conversations with sooner or later when you guys begin to open up trust and figure out, because you're doing it in a natural way that you would naturally do it. Natural way that you'd naturally do it. That's great.
Yeah, we got you. We got you. This is a safe place, more or less.
Yeah. More or
Hey,
less.
I'm curious. Have you seen people get better at this?
Oh yeah.
How do you do that?
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, sure, I know that there's the person, and we'll link some resources in the notes. I know that there's some people who they can read a book, they can see a presentation, and then all of a sudden, all that knowledge, all that ability, like they've got a lot of it ready to go. The vast majority of us aren't that person, right? Yeah. So how do we get better at this?
Yeah, I think the first way we get better at this in the first place is to ask God for his heart in this.
Yeah.
If we truly don't love people the way God loves people, and we don't have that heart, it doesn't make a difference what we do. We're always going to look at this as like some sort of obligation or some sort of work we have to do versus a privilege and an honor that we get to do because we really truly love people and want them to have a relationship with God.
Yeah.
So that's step one, is we have to get our Father's heart. And once you have that, again, look at the way you want a friend in your life. And that's the way you approach it with other people. Don't think about all of the pressure that comes with trying to look at them as a project or trying to figure out the exact system of how you do this. Throw that all out the window and just say, okay, this person needs a friend. How can I be that friend to that person? How is that person wired? What is the uniqueness of that person? And what is my uniqueness? And how do we try to mold those together? And that's what I think once you understand who you are, how God sees you, how God sees your one, then you naturally just look at that. Okay, how do I truly be that friend to them? I mean, it's really as simple as that.
Yeah, and it sounds like that's when the other stuff starts to come into play, right? Then you can figure out like, yeah, hey, what's a great conversation starter? And you can figure out, hey, what's a great tool for this? Or how can I figure out how to talk to them about specific parts of faith? Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Those things come later, but I think you hit the nail. Like the hard thing is because you can't fake that.
No, you can't. You can't, because then that person can feel like, okay, this person's just trying to do this to me. But what you gotta get is the part, like, how do I do this for you? Right? That's what I'm trying to do, something for you and for God, because you guys need to be together. But you've got to get your heart there.
And is that a continual process?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's still some people in this world that I'm having a hard time having a heart for.
It's okay if I'm one of them.
I'm trying to grow.
Yeah.
Slowly with that.
No, I think that's key, right? Is that you never arrive. You're just constantly like, it's like, God, I need my heart for this person. I need your heart for this person. Cause my heart's not going to get me there.
Yep. No, it's a struggle, and the struggle is real. I love people. I love people to death. Like that's, to me, like I love being around people. But there's still a lot of people that I find and I have struggles with being around, and I've been working to try to figure out, okay, God, how can I have your heart for these people right now? Because I don't even like them, but I need to love them.
Yeah. Wow. Well, as soon as you figure that out, you can you can come back on the podcast and we'll dive into it again. Hey, before we wrap up, is there anything that was maybe left on the cutting room floor of the message, or you're like, wow, I really wanted a chance to talk about this, or maybe it was your volleyball story, just in depth, but
no, I think a couple things that I really wanted to share. You can't share it all in one message. Is just, I think there's a lot of things that stop us from doing this and investing in a one. And I think a couple of them are, first of all, like, we don't think that we have the ability to do it. And number two, we don't think that our one is willing to be open to this. And I think both of those are false narratives. I think God has wired each and every one of us to be able to connect with somebody. So we have the ability to do this. All you have to do is just, again, lean into the way that God's wired you, that God's gifted you, and just really lean into that. And you'll be able to reach and have conversations with people and be able to develop relationships with your one. And the second one is that they're not looking for this. One of the most, most Googled / asked question on the internet is about God, right? It's one of the most questions that is God real? Who's this Jesus? These are the questions that people are constantly asking at some of the highest rates of questions being asked in search engines. These guys, people who are far from God, are asking the questions. They are willing to have these questions or having conversations with you. They just need a trusted friend to have these conversations with. As much as we think they're like way off and so far away that they'd never be open to this, they truly are open to this. And so don't think that they're not. Maybe not right away, right? They're not open to that conversation the first time you meet them, but as you build a relationship with them, when they have a trusted friend, they are more than willing to explore faith.
That's so good. I mean, I know you've probably heard it this way, but like most of the time, a lot of people, they don't want to hear something from a pastor.
No.
They could care less what they have to say. And maybe at that moment, you're right. They don't care what somebody has to say about faith in that moment. But you know what they really do want? Like he said, they want somebody to trust. And isn't that's like, you go back to that projects thing. Like that person's not a project. They're a person you care about. And they trust you. There's no agenda hidden behind that. It's nope, I'm taking care of you. There's no more than I have an agenda for any of my friends that I want to see do well. You know? Yeah.
Loneliness and isolation are real, man.
Yeah. Forrest, thank you so much for chatting and taking some time to dive into this stuff. I love hearing your heart on it. I love your passion behind it. And it's just so clear. And it's cool to see you using your giftings and what God has given you to do some awesome stuff in our community and Oak Creek Franklin, all over the Ridge. So thank you.
Thanks, buddy. Always a pleasure being here with you, dude.
Well, that was my conversation with Forrest, and I just love the passion and the heart that Forrest brings to helping people experience the hope of Jesus. If you want to learn more about this, learn how to identify your one, learn how to really see people well and love people well, go to theridgecc.com/your1. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Ridge Podcast, and make sure to follow and subscribe so you don't miss any hopeful and helpful conversations.